Admiral Zefak's tentacles curled around the command chair as he studied the holographic display floating before him. The Galactic Council's most advanced dreadnought, the Sovereign's Will, hung in space like a metallic predator, its kilometer-long hull bristling with quantum cannons and void torpedoes. Around it, a fleet of 200 vessels maintained perfect formation, representing 12 different species united under one banner. "Sir, we're approaching the boundary," reported Commander Thrix, her crystalline form refracting the bridge's amber lighting. "All ships report ready for dimensional translation." Zefak's three eyes focused on the seemingly empty space ahead. To most sensors, there was nothing there, just the cold vacuum between stars. But every spacefaring civilization knew better. This was the edge of human space, a region that had swallowed ships and fleets for over 3 centuries without a single survivor returning to tell what lay beyond. The stories varied depending on who told them. Some claimed humans were savage primitives who ate their enemies. Others whispered they were machine beings who converted organic life into cybernetic slaves. The most terrifying tales spoke of reality-bending weapons that could unmake matter itself. What everyone agreed on was simple: ships that crossed this boundary never came back. Zefak had volunteered for this mission not out of bravery, but necessity. The Galactic Council faced its greatest crisis in 10,000 years. The Devourers, an extragalactic swarm of world-eating machines, had broken through the outer rim defenses. Entire sectors had gone dark. Billions were dead or fleeing toward the galactic core, and the Council's forces were being systematically destroyed. Intelligence suggested that human space might hold the key to stopping the Devourers. Ancient records indicated that humans had once fought and defeated a similar threat millennia ago, though the details were lost to time. The Council needed allies, technology, or information, anything that could turn the tide of war. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Voss from the communications station, his scaled face betraying nervousness. "We're receiving the automated warning transmission." The message that followed was broadcast in over 400 languages, the translation matrices struggling to keep up. The voice that emerged from the speakers was distinctly human, calm, professional, almost bored. "Attention, unidentified vessels. You are approaching restricted space. This is your final warning. Turn back now or face immediate consequences. Human space is closed to all foreign entities. This message will not be repeated." Zefak's mandibles clicked in what passed for a grim smile among his species. 300 years of the same message, broadcast by the same mechanism, warning away anyone foolish enough to approach. Today, someone was finally going to ignore it. "All ships," Zefak commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet's communication network. "Maintain formation. We proceed as planned." The fleet crossed the invisible boundary, and, for a moment, nothing happened. Space looked the same, stars gleaming in the distance, nebulae painting cosmic clouds across the void. Then, the sensors began screaming. "Sir," Thrix's voice cracked with surprise, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple contacts emerging from stealth." The main display exploded with new data as dozens of ships materialized around the fleet. They were unlike anything in the Council's databases, sleek, angular vessels that seemed to bend light around their edges. Their hulls were dark, almost black, with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Fleet composition analysis complete," reported the tactical officer, his voice trembling. 67 vessels detected. Unknown configuration. "Sir, their energy signatures are impossible." "Impossible how?" "Their reading is having more mass energy than should be containable in those hulls. Either our sensors are malfunctioning, or they're using technology we can't comprehend." Zefak felt a chill run through his circulatory system. The human ships hadn't attacked, hadn't even moved. They simply hung in space like patient predators, waiting. A new voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect galactic standard with only the faintest human accent. "Council Fleet Designation Sovereign's Will, you have violated human space sovereignty. You have 30 seconds to reverse course before defensive measures are initiated." "Open a channel," Zefak ordered. He drew himself to full height, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the bridge lights. "This is Admiral Zefak of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. We come in peace," seeking audience with human leadership regarding a galactic-level threat. We are not here as invaders. Silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, the human voice returned, and there was something different in its tone, curiosity mixed with suspicion. State the nature of this threat, Admiral Zefak. The Devourers have returned. Our outer rim territories are being consumed. Billions are dead. We believe humans may have knowledge or technology that could help us stop them. Another pause, this one shorter. When the voice returned, it carried a weight that made Zefak's skin crawl. The Devourers. We haven't heard that name in a very long time. Very well, Admiral. You and your fleet will be escorted to Processing Station Alpha 7. Any deviation from our designated course, any aggressive action, any attempt to scan our vessels or territories will result in immediate termination. Understood. Understood. The human ships began moving, their formation shifting with mechanical precision. As they did, their stealth systems deactivated further, revealing their true number. What had appeared to be 67 vessels was actually over 300, many of them massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the Sovereign's will. How did they hide so many ships? Whispered Commander Thrix. I don't know, Zefak replied. But privately he was beginning to understand why no ship had ever returned from human space. These beings had technology that made the Council's greatest achievements look like children's toys. As the combined fleet moved deeper into human territory, Zefak noticed something that made his blood run cold. The human ships weren't just escorting them, they were hurting them. Every course correction, every formation change was subtly guiding the Council fleet away from certain regions of space. Sir, called the sensor operator, I'm detecting massive constructions in the restricted areas. Artificial structures of enormous size. Can you get details? Negative, sir. Something is actively blocking our scans. But the gravitational distortions suggest structures measured in thousands of kilometers. Zefak stared at the tactical display, trying to process what he was seeing. Humans had been isolated for 3 centuries, yet they possessed technology that seemed godlike compared to Council standards. What had they been doing all this time? What had they built? The answer came as they approached Processing Station Alpha 7. It wasn't a station in any conventional sense. It was a mobile city, a crystalline structure the size of a small moon that moved through space with impossible grace. Its surface bristled with defensive weapons that made the Council's finest warships look like toys. Admiral, the human voice returned. Prepare to receive our representative. He will conduct preliminary discussions aboard your vessel. Of course, we'll prepare appropriate. No preparation necessary. He's already aboard. The bridge fell silent. Every eye turned to the lift doors as they opened with a soft hiss. The figure that stepped onto the bridge was human, but unlike any human in the Council's historical records. He was tall, perhaps 2 meters, with dark hair and pale skin that seemed almost translucent. His clothes were simple, black fabric that seemed to absorb light. But there was something about him that made the air itself feel heavy. Most disturbing were his eyes. They were completely black, not just the iris but the entire visible surface, and they seemed to hold depths that went on forever. Admiral Zefak, the human said, his voice the same one they'd been hearing over communications. I am Coordinator Hayes. We need to talk. Zefak found his voice with effort. How did you? There are no transport signatures, no dimensional distortions. Hayes smiled, and the expression was somehow worse than his eyes. Admiral, if we're going to discuss the Devourers, you need to understand something fundamental. The technology you're familiar with, energy shields, quantum tunneling, dimensional folding, these are infant steps. Humanity moved beyond such limitations long ago. He gestured toward the view screen, where the human fleet maintained its perfect formation. Every ship out there is crewed by beings like myself. We are no longer entirely human in the way your records would define the term. We are something else now. Something that was necessary to survive what we faced. What do you mean? Commander Thrix asked, her crystal structure flickering with nervous energy. Hayes turned those impossible black eyes toward her. 300 years ago, the Devourers came to our space. They consumed 17 of our worlds before we understood what we were facing. Traditional weapons, traditional tactics, traditional thinking, none of it worked. The Devourers adapted to everything we threw at them. He began walking slowly around the bridge, and Every officer unconsciously stepped back from his path. So we stopped being traditional. We stopped being entirely human. We embraced change, evolution, transformation. We became something that could fight the Devourers on their own terms. Zefak felt a terrible certainty growing in his chest. What happened to the ships that came before us? Hayes stopped walking and looked directly at the Admiral. They were studied, categorized, and processed. Their crews were given the choice to join us or to be returned to the edge of our space with their memories appropriately edited. Most chose to join us, once they understood what we had become. And those who refused were returned, as promised. But, Admiral, here's what you need to understand about the Devourers. They're not just machines. They're a test. A filter. A species either evolves beyond its original form to defeat them, or it dies. There is no middle ground. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Hayes continued his slow circuit of the command center. Your galactic council represents thousands of species, millions of worlds. But you're still thinking like the separate, limited beings you were born as. The Devourers will consume you all because you refuse to become something greater. What are you suggesting? Zefak asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. Hayes smiled again, and this time there was something almost predatory in the expression. I'm suggesting that your fleet represents the first candidates for a very special opportunity. You want to defeat the Devourers? You want to save your precious council? Then, you need to stop being what you are and become what you need to be. He gestured toward the view screen again. Every being on every human ship out there was once something else. Kethvar traders, Zilthan warriors, even a few council diplomats from previous expeditions. They all faced the same choice you're about to face. Zefak's tentacles coiled tighter around his command chair. What choice? Evolution or extinction, Admiral? Join us and become something capable of fighting the Devourers, or return to your space and watch your civilization die. The coordinator moved toward the lift doors, then paused. You have 24 hours to decide. During that time, you'll be given a full demonstration of what we've become and what we're capable of. After that, you choose. He stepped into the lift, then turned back one final time. Oh, and Admiral, those ships that never returned. They didn't fail to return. They chose not to. Once you see what we've built here, what we've become, you'll understand why. The doors closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Outside the view screen, the human fleet maintained its patient vigil, waiting to see what choice these newest visitors would make. Zefak stared at the impossible ships surrounding his fleet and realized that everything he thought he knew about humans, about the war with the Devourers, about the nature of evolution itself, was about to change forever. The next 18 hours transformed Admiral Zefak's understanding of reality itself. What began as a standard diplomatic tour became a journey into the impossible, guided by beings who had once been as limited as his own crew, but had chosen to become something beyond classification. Coordinator Hayes returned precisely at the appointed time, materializing on the bridge without any visible means of transport. This time, he wasn't alone. 3 other figures accompanied him, beings that bore only superficial resemblance to the species they had once been. Admiral, Hayes said with that same unsettling smile, I'd like you to meet some colleagues. Commander Zach was once Kethvar, like your navigation officer. Dr. Prism was Zilthan crystal form, similar to Commander Thrix. And strategic analyst Vex was, interestingly enough, the same species as yourself. Zefak studied the beings before him. Commander Zach retained the basic bipedal structure of the Kethvar, but his skin had taken on a metallic sheen and his eyes glowed with internal light. Dr. Prism's crystalline form had been enhanced with flowing patterns of energy that pulsed through her structure like liquid starlight. Most disturbing was Vex. He still possessed the general tentacled form of Zefak's species, but his appendages moved with mechanical precision, and his 3 eyes had been replaced by sensory organs that defied description. What have you done to them? Commander Thrix whispered, her crystal form flickering with distress. We have given them the tools they need to survive what's coming, Hayes replied. But perhaps demonstration would be more effective than explanation. Admiral, would you and your senior staff like to see our facilities? The tour began aboard the processing station Alpha 7. as they walked through corridors that seemed to bend space around them. Hayes explained the transformation that had occurred within human space. When the Devourers first came, he said, leading them past laboratories where beings worked on technology that hurt to look at directly. We tried everything. Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, dimensional rifts, temporal displacement fields. Nothing worked. The Devourers adapted to every attack, learned from every strategy, evolved past every defense. They passed a vast chamber where hundreds of beings, former humans and aliens alike, worked in perfect synchronization on projects that defied understanding. Some floated without technological assistance, manipulating matter with thought alone. Others had integrated so thoroughly with their tools that it was impossible to tell where biology ended and technology began. Traditional evolution is too slow, Dr. Prism explained, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in ways that should have been impossible. Biological adaptation takes thousands of generations. Technological advancement can be reversed through destruction. But conscious, directed evolution, that can happen in moments and cannot be undone. They entered another chamber, this one containing what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. But, as they watched, the map moved and changed, showing the progression of the Devourer invasion in real time. Here, Vex said, his transformed vocal apparatus producing sounds that bypassed the universal translators and spoke directly to their minds, is the current situation. 17 sectors consumed, 43 billion beings processed into raw materials. The Council's defensive lines are collapsing faster than projected. The display zoomed in on specific battlefields, showing Council fleets being systematically destroyed by machines that adapted to every weapon used against them. The tactical data was more detailed and accurate than anything in the Council's own databases. How are you obtaining this information? Zefak asked. We have assets in place, Hayes replied cryptically. Volunteers who chose transformation and returned to Council space to gather intelligence. They appear normal to your sensors, but they are capable of things your science cannot detect. The tour continued deeper into the station, past workshops where impossible materials were being forged, and laboratories where the fundamental forces of reality were being rewritten. In one chamber, they witnessed a demonstration that left the entire Council delegation speechless. A human technician, apparently unmodified, stood before a large block of crystallized neutron matter, material so dense that a cubic centimeter weighed as much as a mountain. With nothing but focused concentration, the technician reached out and reshaped the matter like clay, forming it into intricate geometric patterns that pulsed with contained energy. Psychic manipulation? Commander Thrix asked. Consciousness-directed quantum field manipulation, corrected Commander Zack. What you call psychic abilities are simply the result of minds that have been enhanced to directly interface with the fundamental structure of reality. It's one of the first modifications we make. They were led to an observation deck that overlooked a massive construction project. In the void beyond the station, thousands of beings worked on something that stretched beyond the limits of visual comprehension. It was part space station, part ship, part something else entirely. A structure that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the standard 3. Our newest project, Hayes explained. A weapon specifically designed to fight the Devourers on their own terms. It exists partially outside normal space-time, making it immune to their adaptation processes. How is that possible? Zefak asked. Because we've learned to think beyond the limitations that confine us, Vex replied. The Devourers operate by analyzing and adapting to anything within standard dimensional parameters. But if you attack from dimensions they cannot perceive or access, adaptation becomes impossible. Dr. Prism gestured toward the construction project. Every being working on that vessel has undergone consciousness expansion. They can perceive and manipulate reality across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. To your sensors, they appear to be working on empty space, but they are actually constructing weapon systems in folded dimensions. The implications hit Zefak like a physical blow. These beings weren't just technologically advanced. They had evolved beyond the basic physical limitations that defined consciousness itself. The tour's final stop was a chamber that contained what Hayes called the archive. It was a vast spherical space filled with floating crystalline structures, each one containing what appeared to be complete information about entire worlds, species, and civilizations. Every species that has chosen to join us has contributed their knowledge, their culture, their unique perspectives to this collective, Hayes explained. Nothing is lost. Everything is preserved and enhanced. Azilthan's natural crystalline computing abilities, enhanced by human creativity, and Kethvar's spatial navigation instincts, can solve problems that no single species could address alone. They paused before one particular crystal formation that pulsed with soft light. Inside, barely visible, were the preserved memories and consciousness patterns of what appeared to be millions of beings. The first volunteers, Dr. Prism said softly. Those who chose transformation when the choice was still experimental, still dangerous. Their consciousness patterns were preserved here during the enhancement process. They live on as part of our collective intelligence. This is monstrous, Commander Thrix whispered, her crystal form darkening with revulsion. You've destroyed what these beings were. Have we? Vex asked, approaching the crystal formation. Suddenly, voices began emanating from within, hundreds of them, speaking in harmony. We are not destroyed, they said in unison, their words carrying joy and wonder. We are expanded. We are more than we ever dreamed possible. We see beyond the limitations of single minds, single perspectives, single lifespans. The voices continued, each one distinct yet part of a greater whole. The fear of change is natural, but change is not death, it is birth. We remember what we were, but we would not go back. Cannot go back. Will not go back. As if responding to some unseen signal, the voices faded back to the soft harmonic humming that had been present when they arrived. Hayes turned to face the council delegation. Admiral, you've seen what we've become. You've seen what we're capable of. Now let me show you why it was necessary. They returned to the command center, where Hayes activated a holographic display that filled the entire chamber. What appeared was not a recording, but a real-time view of a council defensive fleet engaging the Devourers. This is happening right now, in the Kepler sector, Hayes said quietly. The display showed 40 council ships, representing the finest military technology of a dozen species, engaging what appeared to be a single Devourer construct. The construct was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest council vessel, and its surface writhed with adaptive technologies. The council ships opened fire with everything they had. Quantum cannons, antimatter torpedoes, dimensional rifts, exotic matter projectiles, every weapon in their arsenal. For a moment, the Devourer construct seemed to stagger under the assault. Then, it began to change. Its hull reconfigured itself, developing specific defenses against each weapon type used against it. The quantum cannons became ineffective as the construct's hull developed quantum-resistant properties. Antimatter torpedoes were absorbed, and their energy redirected back at the attacking ships. Dimensional rifts were collapsed and turned into weapons against their own creators. Within minutes, the tide of battle had completely reversed. The Devourer construct began systematically destroying the Council fleet, using modified versions of their own weapons against them. Standard military doctrine, Hayes observed as they watched ships disappear in flashes of converted matter. Attack with maximum force. Attempt to overwhelm the enemy before it can respond. It doesn't work against the Devourers because they don't just respond, they evolve. The last Council ship attempted to retreat, but the construct had already adapted to their FDL systems. It opened a dimensional distortion that caught the fleeing vessel and drew it back into normal space, where it was efficiently dismantled. 40 ships destroyed, Dr. Prism stated. 3,000 crew members converted to raw materials. Total time, 17 minutes. The display shifted to show the Devourer construct beginning to replicate itself, using the materials from the destroyed fleet to build 3 identical copies. And now there are 4 instead of 1, Vex added. This is why conventional resistance is futile. The Devourers don't just defeat their enemies. They use them as resources for expansion. Hayes turned to Admiral Zefak. Your fleet out there represents 200 ships and nearly 50,000 crew members. Using conventional tactics, how long do you think they would last against a single Devourer construct? Zefak stared at the display, where the four constructs were moving deeper into Council space, leaving dead worlds in their wake. Minutes, he admitted. Perhaps less. But, watch this, Hayes said, manipulating the controls. The display shifted to show a different battle. A single human vessel, sleek, black, and impossibly graceful, faced off against 5 Devourer constructs. The ship was tiny compared to the constructs, barely the size of a Council corvette. The human ship didn't attack conventionally. Instead, it seemed to flicker in and out of existence, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. Each time it appeared, reality itself seemed to bend around it, creating weapons effects that defied physics as the Council understood it. The Devourers attempted to adapt, but their adaptations proved useless. The human vessel was attacking from dimensions they couldn't perceive, using principles they couldn't analyze. Within minutes, all 5 constructs had been neutralized, not destroyed, but simply stopped, as if their fundamental programming had been rewritten. How? Zefak breathed. Consciousness-directed reality manipulation, Hayes explained. The crew of that vessel, 12 beings from 7 different species, have been enhanced to think and perceive beyond normal dimensional limitations. They can attack the Devourer's base programming directly, rather than trying to overcome their adaptive defenses. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the archive crystals. Finally, Commander Thrix spoke. "The cost," she whispered. "What you're asking us to give up, our humanity, our individual identity, everything that makes us who we are. You would retain your core identity," Dr. Prism assured her. "I am still Zilthan in my fundamental nature, but I am enhanced beyond what I was. I think faster, perceive more, understand concepts that were impossible before. I have not lost what I was. I have become more." Hayes stepped forward. "The choice is simple, Admiral. Remain as you are and watch your civilization be consumed, or evolve and gain the power to protect not just yourselves, but all life in the galaxy." He gestured toward the view screen, where the human fleet maintained its patient vigil around the Council ships. "Your 24 hours are almost up. What will it be?" Zefak looked at his senior staff, seeing fear and uncertainty in their expressions. But he also saw something else, a growing realization that everything they had believed about power, evolution, and survival was inadequate for the threat they faced. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, unaware that the future of galactic civilization hung in the balance of a choice between remaining human and becoming something far more dangerous to the things that threatened them all. Admiral Zefak stood alone on the observation deck of the Sovereign's Will, watching the human fleet maintain its perfect formation around his vessels. 6 hours remained until the deadline, and he still hadn't reached a decision that would affect not just his crew, but potentially the fate of galactic civilization. Behind him, the soft hum of the door announced someone's arrival. He didn't turn around. He knew from the distinctive harmonic resonance that it was Commander Thrix. "Sir," she said softly, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight in fractured patterns. "The crew is asking questions. Rumors are spreading about what we've seen." "What kind of rumors?" "Some are calling the humans demons who steal souls. Others think they've found the key to ultimate power. A few are requesting immediate transfer to the enhancement program." She paused, her internal light flickering with uncertainty. "Sir, what are we going to do?" Zefak's tentacles curled tighter around the observation rail. "I don't know, Commander. I've been trying to weigh the costs against the benefits, but every calculation leads to the same conclusion, which is that we don't really have a choice at all." The door chimed again, and this time it was Lieutenant Voss who entered. The scaled reptilian officer looked haggard, his usual composure cracked by the events of the past day. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the tactical data they showed us," he reported. "I've run it through every simulation program we have. The conclusion is inescapable. Conventional forces cannot defeat the Devourers. The adaptation rate is too fast, the resource consumption too efficient. Even if we united every species in the galaxy, we would only be providing them with more materials for expansion." "What about the human weapons?" Thrix asked. "Could we develop similar technology without undergoing their enhancement process?" Voss's expression darkened. "I don't think so. The physics involved require perception and manipulation of dimensional layers that our current neural architecture cannot access. It's not just a matter of technology, it's a fundamental limitation of unenhanced consciousness. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden materialization of Coordinator Hayes in the center of the observation deck. None of their sensors had detected his approach, and there were no signs of the dimensional distortions that should have accompanied any known transportation method. "Admiral," Hayes said with his characteristic unsettling smile, "I hope you don't mind the intrusion. I thought you might benefit from seeing something." Without waiting for permission, he activated a holographic projector that filled the observation deck with a three-dimensional display of the galaxy. Red markers indicated areas where the Devourers had struck, while amber zones showed regions under immediate threat. "This is the situation as of 6 hours ago," Hayes explained. "The Devourers have consumed another 18 billion beings since our initial meeting. They're reproducing exponentially, and their advance toward the galactic core is accelerating." The display zoomed in on specific sectors, showing the systematic destruction of entire star systems. Worlds that had housed thriving civilizations for millennia were being stripped of all organic and technological matter, leaving behind empty husks of rock and metal. "But here's what your sensors haven't detected," Hayes continued. The display shifted, revealing new markers, blue indicators scattered throughout the affected regions. Human intervention teams have been operating in Devourer-controlled space for the past 72 hours. The display showed detailed battle footage of enhanced humans engaging Devourers in ways that defied conventional understanding. Some teams materialized inside Devourer constructs, rewriting their base programming from within. Others attacked from folded space, using weapons that existed partially outside normal reality. 47 Devourer constructs neutralized, Hayes reported. 0 human casualties. "But, Admiral, this is just a delaying action. There are thousands of constructs, and more being created every hour. My teams can't be everywhere at once." Zefax studied the tactical display with growing comprehension. "You're buying time." "Exactly. Time for you to make your choice, and time for that choice to matter. If you decide to join us, your fleet represents a significant addition to our capabilities. 200 ships, 50,000 crew members with diverse skills and perspectives. That could be the difference between containing the Devourers and watching them consume the galactic core." "And if we refuse?" Hayes's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in those black eyes. "Then, you return to Council space with edited memories, and my teams continue their holding action until the Devourers inevitably overwhelm us. Your species, along with all others in the galaxy, face extinction." Commander Thrix stepped forward, her crystal structure pulsing with agitation. "Why edit our memories? Why not let us return with the truth?" "Because," Hayes replied, "panic would only accelerate the Devourer's advance. Desperate beings make poor decisions, and poor decisions provide the Devourers with more opportunities for resource acquisition." The holographic display shifted again, showing a projection of galactic-wide panic. Refugee fleets clogged shipping lanes, military forces abandoned defensive positions to protect their home worlds, and political systems collapsed under the weight of impending doom. "This is what happens when unenhanced beings fully comprehend the threat they face," Hayes explained. "Chaos, which the Devourers exploit with devastating efficiency." Lieutenant Voss studied the projections with professional interest. "But if we join you, if we undergo enhancement, our entire tactical and strategic perspective changes?" "Completely. Enhanced consciousness operates on different principles: long-term thinking, collective coordination, acceptance of necessary sacrifice for optimal outcomes. Panic becomes impossible when you can perceive and process multiple probability matrices simultaneously." Hayes gestured, and the display showed a different projection, one where enhanced human forces coordinated with similarly upgraded Council personnel to systematically contain and eliminate the Devourer threat. "With your fleet's resources added to our capabilities, we estimate a 73% probability of complete Devourer elimination within 18 months. Without your assistance, that probability drops to 12%. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. Zefax felt the weight of 50,000 lives under his command, along with the trillions more throughout the galaxy who would never know that their fate might depend on a decision made in the depths of human space. What guarantees do we have? Fricks asked. How do we know that enhancement won't simply make us into extensions of human will? For the first time since they'd met him, Hayes's expression showed something approaching genuine emotion, a kind of tired sadness. Commander, every being who undergoes enhancement retains their fundamental nature. I am still recognizably human, despite my modifications. Dr. Prism maintains her Zilthan crystal song communication patterns. Vex still exhibits the tentacled coordination behaviors of your species. What changes is capability, not core identity. He paused, looking out at the stars beyond the observation windows. But I won't lie to you about the risks. Enhancement is irreversible. Once you cross that threshold, you can never go back to being what you were. Some beings find the transition psychologically difficult. The expanded perception can be overwhelming at first, and the collective consciousness aspects require significant adjustment. Collective consciousness? Zefak asked sharply. Not a hive mind. Hayes clarified quickly. Enhanced beings maintain individual personalities and decision-making capabilities. But we can also access shared cognitive resources when needed, pooling intelligence, experience, and processing power to solve complex problems. He activated another holographic display, this one showing the neural networks of enhanced beings. The patterns were incredibly complex, with connections extending far beyond individual brains to touch some kind of larger structure. Think of it as having access to a vast library of consciousness, Hayes explained. You remain yourself, but you can also draw upon the experiences and knowledge of thousands of others when facing challenges that exceed individual capabilities. The observation deck fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Finally, Zefak spoke. I need to consult with my crew. Of course, Hayes replied. But, Admiral, remember that time is a luxury we don't have much of. Every hour of delay means more worlds consumed, more beings lost. He began to fade from view, then paused as if remembering something. Oh, and Admiral, your crew has been monitoring our conversation. They've heard everything we've discussed. You might find their input illuminating. With that, he vanished completely, leaving the three council officers alone with the weight of an impossible decision. Zefak activated the ship's internal communication system. All senior staff to Conference Room 1. All department heads to standby stations. We have a decision to make. The next 4 hours were unlike anything in Zefak's military career. What began as a traditional command briefing evolved into something approaching a philosophical discussion about the nature of existence, identity, and survival. The opinions were divided, but not in ways he had expected. The younger crew members, particularly those from species that had already encountered the Devourers secondhand, were overwhelmingly in favor of enhancement. They saw it as an opportunity not just to survive, but to become something greater than they had ever imagined possible. The older officers were more cautious, expressing concerns about losing their cultural identities and the potential for human domination of enhanced beings. But it was Chief Engineer Kalos, a normally quiet being from one of the galaxy's most conservative species, who provided the most compelling argument. Sir, she said during the discussion, I've been analyzing the technological capabilities we've observed. The humans aren't just offering us enhanced weapons or better ships. They're offering us a fundamental evolution of consciousness itself. She activated a technical display showing comparative analyses of council and human capabilities. Every limitation we face, reaction time, processing speed, dimensional perception, energy manipulation, can be overcome through their enhancement process. We wouldn't just be better soldiers. We would be better scientists, engineers, artists, philosophers, better beings in every measurable way. But at what cost? Demanded Commander Roth, the ship's cultural liaison. We would lose everything that makes our species unique. Would we? Kalos challenged. Or would we gain the ability to express those unique qualities in ways we never thought possible? The debate continued, but Zefak could see the tide of opinion shifting. Fear was being replaced by curiosity, uncertainty by determination. Finally, he called for silence. The decision must be unanimous, he announced. We go together, or not at all. I won't condemn anyone to a fate they haven't chosen, and I won't leave anyone behind to face the devourers with inadequate defenses. He looked around the room at faces representing a dozen different species, all united by their service to the Galactic Council and their commitment to protecting innocent life. All in favor of accepting the human enhancement offer? Hands, tentacles, crystalline projections, and other appendages rose throughout the room. Zefak counted them carefully. Unanimous. 2 hours later, Admiral Zefak stood on the bridge of the Sovereigns while as Coordinator Hayes materialized before him one final time. "Admiral," Hayes said, "have you reached a decision?" "We have," Zefak replied, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to say. "On behalf of my crew and fleet, I formally request inclusion in the Human Enhancement Program." Hayes smiled, and, for the first time, the expression seemed genuinely warm rather than unsettling. "Welcome to the next stage of galactic evolution, Admiral. Your transformation begins immediately." Outside the view screen, the human fleet began moving into new formations, and the lights of Processing Station Alpha 7 grew brighter as massive systems came online to handle 200 ships and 50,000 beings who had chosen to become something far more dangerous to the enemies of civilization. The age of traditional warfare was ending. The age of conscious evolution had begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, the Devourers continued their relentless advance, unaware that humanity had just gained 50,000 new allies in a war they thought they had already won.